Hello guys, my name is Daniel and today we're going to talk about FL Studio 12 and how to create a basic beat using some of the features of the program. So at first we're going to cover a little bit about the layout of the program, the different functions that you can do, and then we're going to create a little bit of music. So let's get to it. First thing, let's understand a little bit about the whole overall layout of the program. So up here, you have our toolbar. So on this left side over here, we have your basic buttons that every computer program has, like file, edit, and that kind of stuff. That's when you're gonna open files, save it, that kind of thing. But then over here, we have other functions that are more related to this program itself. So for example, right here where you see 130, that's the tempo of the song. You can set that to anything you want. Right now we have 130 beats per minute. Then over here we have the patterns, which that's gonna make sense a little bit later in the tutorial. But that's pretty much the sections of your song, so you don't create your whole song under one pattern. You want to separate instruments in different patterns so you have more control if you need to do some editing later. But we're gonna understand that a little bit better when we get to other things. But that's the toolbar up here. Then right underneath the toolbar, we have what we call the playlist. That's when you're gonna lay down your patterns. As you can see, I already have a few in here. That's pretty much where you're gonna build the song. So you're gonna have all these different sections, and in the playlist, that's when you're gonna lay them out in a song format, like a sequence. So you have a continuous music per se. But we're gonna get into that a little bit later as well. Down here, you have the channel rack. That's where you have your instruments that you're currently using. So I already have a few here, like a kick drum, a snare drum, a couple effects, and that's where you create actual rhythms and beats and the overall music of it. Down over here on the right side, you have the mixer. That's pretty much where you're gonna import your tracks from the channel rack. And once you import them to the mixer, you have a better control over it. Now, like you can set the levels, like the volume levels. You can add panning to it. You can add effects. You can do a bunch of stuff here in the mixer. So it's important to export your channels from the channel rack into the mixer because that's gonna give you a lot more options in the future. And then finally here on the left side, we have this menu, and that's pretty much where you're gonna grab all your sounds from. That's your sound library. So let's say for now I have this really basic beat. We can listen to it real quick. So that's how it sounds like. Just a regular drum beat. So let's say I want to add something, right? Because if you're starting out from scratch, that's what you're gonna do. You're just gonna add instruments so you can start, creating some rhythms and that kind of stuff. So let's pretend I want to add, I don't know, maybe a keyboard. So I'm gonna go, for example, to my samples here, and then you're gonna have all sorts of stuff here: bass effects, drums, piano, strings, regular instruments. And then you have all these samples here. Whenever you click one, you can hear it. So you can see how the sample sounds like before you add it to your song. So let's say, for example, all right, I like this one. So let's say I want to add this one right here. So I right click it and I choose open in a new channel. And when I do that, we're gonna get this little pop-up here. That's pretty much if you want to mess around with the sound wave itself, but we don't want to do that right now, so I'm just gonna close it. But now you can see the instrument right down here, and now we can actually start creating notes, so you can actually put that into the song. But before I do that, I'm gonna link this thing here to the mixer over here, so later I can have a little more control over it. So the way I do that is, see whenever we click this little bar here, that's pretty much you're selecting that channel. So if I click here, I will be selecting this one channel right here. So when I come to the mixer and I find an empty track like this one here, number 6, I can just right click it and go to channel routing and then route selected channels to this track. Since the selected channel is that one over there, which is the one I want to move, I can just do that and boom. Now you can see the name here matches the name over here. So all the options here, the faders, the knobs, they're gonna control this one instrument over here. So, and that's pretty useful, especially later when you're dealing with effects and that kind of stuff. And so now let's try to create some notes. So the way you can lay down notes in two different ways. So you can either use the step sequencer, which is this thing right here. So whenever you highlight a note like that, the program is gonna know that he should play that one note. But in this case, since it's a string instrument, I want to have like a continuous note that's gonna sound longer. Because if I do it just using the step sequencer, it's gonna be like a really chopped up kind of thing. I'll illustrate that in a second. So, for example, if I, let's say, I highlight this note, this note, this note, and this note, and if I play it, that's how it sounds like. But I don't want to do that. I want to have one long note. So in order to do that, instead of using the step sequencer, I'm going to delete those. You just right click to delete the notes. Instead of using the step sequencer, I'm going to use what it's called the piano roll. To do that, you right click the channel, and then you're going to get this little menu, and then you can click piano roll. And that's going to bring this screen right here. So as you can see, you actually have a like a piano keyboard on the left side here, and whenever you press on a thing, it's gonna sound that instrument that you're selected and on the different keys of the piano. So let's say I want to have a note and a C4 key. So I can press that, and here I can manipulate how long that note's gonna sound for. So if I do a short one, it's just gonna sound like this, like nothing. So if I put another one here, it's pretty short. But I want a long one, so I can come here, and whenever we see this double arrow kind of thing, you can click and hold and then drag to make that note as long as you want it to. So let's say I'm gonna do 2 full bars, so all the way over here. So that when I press play, we're gonna have a continuous sound of that one note, which is what I want in this case. So let's say I have this one here, but then I want to alternate between the key of C4 and one above, or halfway above actually. So I'm gonna go to pattern 4 because I don't want to mix the patterns. I want each segment of the song on different patterns. So I'm gonna change that to pattern 5 up here. So now it's blank because there's nothing pattern 5. So I'm gonna lay down another note here, the same length as the other one, but now in a different pattern. And this one is gonna sound a little bit higher. So I can close this. So now you can see whenever I use the piano roll, it's gonna look different than the step sequencer, and that's fine. So if I want to put that into my song, which is up here in the playlist, I select the pattern 1, so now pattern 4. So let's say I want to play that note right here. I can just click it, and that's gonna lay down right there. And then I want pattern 5, which is the higher note, right next to it, right here. And then let's alternate again to pattern 4 and another one of pattern 5, like that. So now when I press play and the program starts reading this, it's gonna read in sequence starting from this beginning right here, and then everything that's on along the way is gonna be played at that point in time. So this is how it would sound like now if I play. And then it's gonna loop back in because that's all we have so far. But and then let's say if I think that the drums are too loud or that keyboard, I can come here over the mixer and mess around with the settings here, the faders, so I can, turn down or up the volume in some of the channels. Maybe I can add some effects, um, some panning, and that kind of stuff. But that's pretty much how you lay down a basic beat. You're always gonna come over here. You're gonna select your instruments, select your samples. You're gonna come here into this channel rack, and that's where you're gonna create the actual beat, the actual rhythms. Then over here, you're gonna import the tracks over here so you have a better control over the volume and that kind of stuff. And finally, when I have all this in place, you're gonna come up here in the playlist and start laying down the patterns so you can actually put the songs together. And I hope that makes sense. And I hope this was helpful. And I see you guys next time. Thank you.